the pollen bodies with the larval pheromones, they attract the bees, they can consume it. But with the diarrhea and nosema colony, we don't see any sign of protein consumption in the colony. This picture is last in a minute when we add on healthy colonies when they had basically shortage of early spring shortage of pollens for brood production. And basically, basically about the one thing is about the constipation problem and consuming pollens. The colony are constipated. They're not able to consume protein either. Well, anything's preventing bees to consume pollen, basically jelly production stops and brood production stops. And one generation of the bees, when it stops, we need a 2-3 generation to recover the population. Especially cold climate countries, after 5, sometimes 7, 8 months of wintering bees, if we cannot make the first generation, basically we're losing the most part of the operations. That's why it's important. Before first feedings, we do all the tests we need for the checking the any pathogen is related to the bees. Well, which is part of it, we talk about the metabolism disease. Disease can destroy loss of operation in such a short time. These are like symptoms of constipation in Alberta, which is goes minus 20 average in winter almost. Bees, after 7-8 months of wintering, because of so much pollens, and they cannot defecate, and they die in front of the hives. Now back to this is formula how to cure the constipation. Doesn't need any medication, any antibiotics. Just we need 60% warm water, 2% lemon juice, or can be any acidic juice, 5% honey, 33% sugars. It can basically reduce over 90% in less than a week, first feedings. Now, the other way how to identify the diarrhea symptoms. Always we have 10-15% diarrhea symptoms on front of the hives and on top of the lids. That can be normal, but if we try to put some white sheet around 20 feet, 60 feet, or 40 feet of the operations, and we feed the same paradox with the acidic juice or warm waters, we will see loss of defecation happening in 20 or 40 or 60 feet of the honeybee operations. If we have more than 40% of diarrhea symptoms, meaning bees are suffering for some kind of pathogens, they are not able to digest the pollens. And meaning immediate treatment, immediate plan has required to be basically for the preventions. But if you have a 10, 15%, even to 20%, if it's not a long winter, we know some pollen flu and honey flu will happen soon, we can get away from it. Basically, most of those symptoms when we send a sample to the lab, most of the colony being involved with the diarrhea. And nosema apis basically with the diarrhea symptoms. In year 2009, one of the apiaries in the Vancouver area, he lost almost 100% of the operation, 2,700, but all the colony what we see was diarrhea symptoms. The sample taken to the lab has been reported as mostly nosema apis and nosema serrana. Basically, it wasn't recommended to do irradiations. Well, one thing I would say, not as a way I do myself, is I'm not saying radiation doesn't help, but the disease always exists in the colony with the bees. We cannot irradiate the bees, we cannot irradiate the equipment, bees are sitting on it. And having a disease, especially like a nosema apis or nosema serrana or American foulbrood or European foulbrood, 10%, 20% or 100%, it doesn't make a big difference because it's such a short time, becomes so epidemics and grow so fast and can create a huge problem in operation. Mostly we have to come with a solution how to get away from problems. Now, basically, on treatment side, we had a loss experience. When we using the proteins liquid forms to feed the bees, it helps a lot to germinate the microbes, which is, after I will talk with the video, it shows proving that how protein consumption can help the germinating the any spores or any microbials, which is related, all the brood production, all the bee disease are related to protein consumptions. When bees starting consuming pollens, jelly productions, royal jelly production in multiple granule start, when queen receiving the royal jelly, spermatheca goroshi lay eggs, then all the, first of all, during consumption, all the metabolism diseases exist growing. Also, it can be prevented at the same time. When you're talking about even varroa mite is related to brood production. Brood production is related to protein consumptions or pollen consumptions. Well, but protein consumption is related to pheromones giving away from pheromones. If pheromones, sometimes we have more than 4 or 5 frames of pollen in the 7, 8, or 10 frames populations, but bees doesn't consume the pollen because of no pheromone exists. But artificially, the pheromone can be fed to the bees, and then when protein consumption starts and disease germination starts, at the same time we can add basically active paradex to the proteins, liquid proteins, and prevent the disease, which is the most efficient part of these formula. It will be shown by video for the next presentation afternoon regarding American foulbirds, which is all equipment getting used at the same time. Basically, the paradox I developed myself over 20 years, called Caspian solution. The paradox is a combination of the royal jelly and pheromones. Basically, and that's a key for the basically to control the colonies basically behavior by push them consuming pollen at any time we want it. Because naturally that doesn't happen if the natural flow starts. The natural flow starts, we basically nature controlling our activity in the bee industry, in the beekeeping. But somehow, basically, if we can do that, which is this paradox, is basically why over limit introducing pheromone to the colonies, bees will consume huge level of pollens, and normally that overconsumptions will create overproduction of the worker jelly and royal jelly, and they have to start broodings. Well, it's a video actually. Well, we have in 20 degrees in less than 5 seconds we start. We can see in observation of queen starting laying eggs, or the picture we will show how much that protein consumptions basically creating so much protein consumptions for to feeding over limit of the jelly for the larva and brooding productions. These are some number we have on some years, like 2006 in winter was 20%, basically 20% loss, and 30% loss, which is 20% was related to the area in Vancouver area. 2007 almost was 30%, but in 2008, 15, but the 2009, it was a very, in 2000 high was a 5% loss, but except one number, we don't have it here. It was in 2009, 2,700 hives from apiaries in Vancouver area. It was all dead, totally dead operation, golden eagle is apiaries with Nosema and Apis and Nosema serrana, but we also had other amoeba and protozoa, which is, we cultured them, some of them, it was related as a pathogens, basically could create problems, some of them didn't. But when that operation, when I was going to manage that operation, that there was needed 3,000 hives for pollination, I've been recommended strongly to irradiate all those equipment. When we talk to the companies for irradiations, it could cost us almost $250,000, and also was such a short time of doing it, but also I was disagree as a method I had as a treatment. Well, we treat that operations, it was basically with zero losses of diarrhea, almost 1% loss of diarrhea a year after for 2010. This was about the operation. From 2,600 we had basically 3% losses, which is 1% was related to diarrhea symptoms. And that diarrhea symptoms, that 1% we had basically only 2 or 3 of them was related to Nosema, the rest of them was related to fermented honey from the hives. Basically, it was at the old queen, but not any broodings in early spring. But basically, constipation is mostly for the winter climate, cold climates. Basically, we can have them sometimes, even warm climates like Iran and other country. Actually, when we've been involved with the beekeeping, we see sometimes warm climate, beekeepers using lots of antibiotics in early spring and huge level of pollen coming. We get that symptoms, but usually goes away very easily by a little bit nectar's flow. This is almost done. End of the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we take the questions from the floor using a microphone. I hope, okay, we have a microphone runner there. So if you get seated, you will get your questions through. Okay, thank you very much. So we've had some presentations covering Nosema apis and Nosema ceranae. My presentation was focusing mainly on the lack of evidence for the replacement process of one parasite for the other, and then speculating a little bit on what could be the reasons for different data reported from different areas, different climates, and partly at least my presentation was supported with data from Canada by Steve Purnell. And he also presented some interesting ideas on how to control these parasites, in particular Nosema ceranae. I will have a question for you, Steve. And then we received some information from Poland, where it seems that the picture that Steve and I was painting is not really being brought out from Poland, where it seems that the data suggested that you had some severe effects from these Microsporidia infections. You could correlate cases of Nosema with colony losses. I should point out, though, in general, that you should be very careful with correlation studies because cause and effect is not the same as correlations. So I think we need substantially more data on cause and effect of Nosema ceranae and eventual symptoms or losses than we have at present, and all these naturally for different climates. Then we had the presentation with a more practical angle from Hossein from Canada, running an impressive number of beehives and presenting some other sort of angle, I would say, where maybe it's not a parasitic problem that we have with colony losses, but rather metabolic problems. And I don't know what this Caspian solution is. I know I've heard about the Italian solution, but the Caspian solution, I'm not sure what that is. That would be interesting, and maybe we will get some kind of question like that from the audience. So please, with these 1, 2, 3, 4 speakers, have you assembled some questions? Please come forward with them now, and we have raise your hand, and you will a microphone will be brought to you.
I can talk loud.
It would be very nice if the people that ask the questions